Welcome on in. This is Lowcountry Money Talk, and we are joined now by Phil Bloyd. He's with Revolutionary Financial Group. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Before we started the show, we were talking about the year end, and the year end means a lot of things for a lot of folks, but it definitely means it's time to pay some attention to your financial picture.
You know, we get a reset, so it's almost December 31st. There's some things we can do. So the first thing I would say is tax harvesting. That's something that you've probably heard mentioned before, but tax harvesting would be if I have any capital losses, maybe I've carried forward, or maybe in my brokerage accounts, not in IRAs, but in my brokerage accounts, maybe I've made some gains and maybe I've made some losses, but hey, Christmas is coming, right?
That's right.
So maybe I need some income for some gifts or something. So if I have maybe a $5,000 loss in an equity position, and maybe I have a $5,000 gain, maybe I sell some of the gain. Market's high, right? We're supposed to sell.
Sell high.
Right?
We've heard that.
So we take our $5,000 and we look at it against the $5,000 loss, the gain versus loss, and guess how much that equals?
I think it's 5.
Well, 5 positive, 5 negative, 0 for the tax person.
There you go.
So that's what
Yes.
we're looking
There you
for.
go.
So that's tax harvesting.
Yes, and in the example you gave when we were on the break was, talking about then if you do have a $10,000 loss or a $5,000 gain, then you are only at -5, which obviously is better than where you were before.
So now would be maybe we've had a huge market year again. And for 13 years we've been doing quite well with the rise of the equities. So if we have any losses that we've been carrying forward, capital losses, we may use those capital gains to kind of offset. So when January comes around, we may be in a little bit of a different market. So we'll have some nice zeroed out, if you would, taxes, so we could start over again on those gains for next year.
What's interesting about what you're talking about too, if you do have a net gain and a net loss that you are trying to get to 0, is you were explaining that it doesn't have to be, it can be across any of your industries that you're investing in. So if you've got an Amazon and a GE, you can actually make those work together.
Whatever the equities may be, we have our gains and we have our losses. So, we may have one that's done really great, and we sold this dog here like years ago, but we haven't used up all the loss yet because maybe we're just taking $3,000 a year, using that and then carrying forward. So now would be a good time because I think, maybe we've been in a huge run in equities minus March of last year. If we take that out of the picture, we're running about a 13-year gain. So the market's probably due for a change.
Yes.
So if it changes, now would be the time to possibly, some people say, well, I've made so much in gains in this position, I hate to sell it. And then what I say is, well, I guess we'll wait for it to lose and then we'll sell it.
And that's the problem and that we get into, of course, definitely.
Right.
Let's take some time, of course, we start thinking about Roth this time of year and what kinds of things should we be doing and thinking about as we roll into the year end here.
Yeah. Let's take a look at our wiggle room.
Okay.
So I brought a little bit of the tax summary here just to kind of refresh. So I like to use the wiggle room in the individual tax code to make a plan. It's getting kind of late in the year, so I'm hoping you made this plan earlier, but it's not too late still. So maybe I can use this as a guide. So let's say that I'm in the 22%. I'm married, filing jointly, 81,000 to 172, and let's say I'm okay with paying up to 22% on some of my income. So let's say I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, I'm at 130,000, so I have wiggle room of about 40,000. So maybe I want to convert some of my traditional IRA over to the Roth IRA to keep it under that 22% or at that 22%, but not go to the next bracket. So what I do is I call this the wiggle room.
Really
So this is
smart.
the wiggle room. So what is your wiggle room? I mean, I don't know, but you should find out real quick, because we only have till December 31st to do these conversions. So that's one thing that won't go into the new year. So some people say, well, I'll do it next year. Well, hey, why lose a year? Because the rates we're looking at here, remember the sunset, they're due to sunset in 2025. So that would be the last year of these rates, then the tax rates will automatically go up.
Wow. So it's important to take a look at that and to be aware of that, where you do fall within these tax brackets and what wiggle room you have.
Yeah.
So asking an expert obviously is helpful. We've got more questions for the expert. We got to go to break.
Okay.
Phil, we'll be right back. Stick with us. Hey, nice to see you. We are about to wrap up the year, so we're talking money, and this is the perfect place to do it. This is Lowcountry Money Talk, and we've got the perfect guy for you because the expert is here. If you're just tuning in, Phil Bloyd is here with Revolutionary Financial Group. We're talking everything money and everything you need to know right now. Thanks for having us. Thanks
All
for
right.
being here.
Yes.
Let's talk money.
Yeah, okay. So Jessa, again, getting towards the end of the year, some things we can do. A lot of seniors that are required to take this minimum distribution. Now the age is 72. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't know that the rules changed, because last year we didn't have to take a distribution at all.
Right.
Because of the pandemic. Then there was a change that was made, the Secure Act, in that time period that says we're moving the age of required minimum distribution from 70 and a half to 72. And a lot of seniors don't even know that changed. So we don't want to miss that.
Right.
50% penalty.
Absolutely.
Right? If we don't take that. So some people are like, well, Phil, I have to take let's just use an example, say $20,000 is my required minimum distribution. I don't really want it. I don't need it. I have enough with my pension, Social Security, whatever it may be. And I'm like, well, great, there is a provision that allows us to send those funds directly to a charity, for example.
And isn't that fascinating? Because to your point, typically what we're doing when we're giving a charitable gift, or at least I know I am, is we're taking our paycheck in, we're getting taxed on that, and then we're writing a post-tax check to our charity of choice.
Sure.
So you're saying this is really a way to avoid doing it that way and also be able to take your minimum distribution.
Let's save some money.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm
That's what
about.
we're here
So
for.
let's save some money for our viewers today. If maybe you're doing a charity monthly or whatever, this can be arranged, but let's say, for example, like the example you gave, people are taking a distribution, they're paying the taxes on it, and then they're sending the money to charity. In this case, now, although they changed the rule where your minimum required distribution is 72, for charitable donations, it's still 70 and a half. So if you're 70 and a half or above, you can still do this.
Okay.
So let's say XYZ charity. I want them to get 5. I want this one to get 5. I can break it up however I want. But when that money goes to them, it will satisfy my minimum distribution. But the $20,000 in this example will not be taxable to me.
Wow.
Hey. So depending on your deductions, if you're just doing like a standard deduction and this and that, I don't know how much you're giving your charity, but it may not help you a whole lot. But in this event, this way I don't have to count it on my income tax. So I like that.
Absolutely. Well, and if you're able to plan for that and, think about the year ahead, if you are somebody who gives a certain amount to each charity every year and kind of work it into your budget and your plans, you can really plan for that, knowing that if you are 70 and a half, that minimum distribution number, 72 at minimum, and then 70 and a half, you can participate, and then you can save money in a pre-planned way, which is really what we're all wanting to do.
Save money. Now, as we get into the future, and we'll be talking about this later, there's going to be more emphasis on taxation. So we're going to have to come up with more strategies on how to save money. This is just one easy one.
Right.
But the other thing, some people are like, well, I like to take the money there and hand it myself. A lot of times the custodians will make the checks out to your charity, mail them to you, and you can take them and hand deliver.
Oh, that's still a nice way to do it then. That's really good. Well, a lot of things to know, a lot of changes, of course. That's why we're glad we have you to help us navigate some of this, and we're glad to have you too, and we hope you'll stay with us after this break. Stick around. I hope you're ready to talk money. I know we are. We've been talking money in the end of the year, what some of the changes are, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So there's more changes. Phil Bloyd is here with us today from Revolutionary Financial Group. This is Lowcountry Money Talk, and this is a great place to learn. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be sharing this with everyone in the low country.
Oh, we are too. And you know what? I've learned a ton from you already, and some changes have happened, as we were talking about before the break, about required minimum distributions and what ages those may affect. Other changes we're going to talk about right now. There's some tax bracket changes, for example.
I got this from Bloomberg. It came out the other day. So to our advantage, as far as the standard deduction, right now we're at $25,100 for the tax year 2021, and that's moving up to $25,900. So the reason I'm telling you these things are so that we can plan for next year. Remember the wiggle room and the Roth conversions, and, go see your tax advisor for sure.
Now's a good time, definitely.
Many people are their own tax advisors, though, I find out. So if you're your own tax advisor, be aware of this yourself.
Got it.
Maybe you haven't got the newest software or whatever, so kind of get ahead of the game a bit. Now the other thing, the projected brackets are moving up to our benefit as well. A little inflationary help.
And that is helpful, absolutely. So talk to us about what we can expect to see.
So as an example, we could say in the 2021, we had the 22% bracket was 81,051 to 172,750. Now that's going to be 83,550 up to 178,150.
Okay.
So that gives us maybe an extra 5,000 for that Roth conversion that we spoke about.
Absolutely.
So if you don't have a strategy for that, I say this every day, and they're like, Phil, you're all just about Roth conversions. Not really. It's part of the overall planning.
Right.
But I keep reminding people, 2025, these brackets sunset, and then we go back to where we were before.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's an automatic increase.
There we go. What's interesting about the strategies that we're talking about today and the way that you operate and talk money with us here is it's not just about doing the right things. I mean, you can do all the right things and you can have your investments and you can see some gains here and you can put your money into your Roth, and all of that is important. But if you're not cautious and watching some of these changes and up to date on how this could affect you, you're not maybe making the right moves and making sure that you're not, really just kind of throwing money away, right?
Well, Jessa, the thing is, over the last 13 years, we could kind of be sloppy a bit because we've had this huge growth. And people come in every day and I'm like, well, how are your investments doing? Or we'll say, how's your money doing? And they're like, oh, it's doing great. And I'm like, well, it should be. Because we've been in one of the longest bull markets in the history of this country.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing great, we've got problems. But use what's in front of you, because when that's taken away from us, then we've missed that opportunity. So what I'm always trying to do is point out to people, hey, look, here's some opportunity here. Use it or lose it. And, the problem we have is when we're 65 or 70, we don't have that paycheck going in every payday to be withdrawn to our 401k or whatever it may be. So if we make some mistakes along the way, it kind of gets smoothed out when we're younger.
Right.
But when we're older, we've kind of accumulated all of our funds.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, making sure that we are being cautious about every dollar and where can we save and where can we gain, and that all plays into the bigger plan. So it's nice to have your eye on all of these changes so that we can share with our viewers. After the break, you got to stick with us. Our last segment, we're going to talk a little bit about some investment strategies for 2022 and, of course, how inflation may play a role. So stick with us. We'll be right back. You're watching Lowcountry Money Talk. Welcome back in. We promised you some strategies for 2022, and they have arrived. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And Phil Bloyd is with us with Revolutionary Financial Group. Going to kind of wrap up this whole conversation about year-end planning. Now we're going to look ahead. So for folks out there who are thinking about their strategy for 2022, first of all, hopefully they have one. That's a good start.
Usually they come around like January 30th, 2022.
Okay, that's when they start, right?
I'm going to the gym. I need to lose 50 pounds. I've got 2 weeks to spring break.
Yeah. Right. That sounds like about where we're at from a procrastination standpoint. But that's okay. We've got you covered today. We're going to pre-plan a little bit for you. One of the things on everybody's mind, Phil, is, of course, inflation. We're really starting to feel it. So let's talk a little bit about it.
Yeah. Okay, so we had that big spike. So we're at 6.4 now, which caught some people a little flat-footed. Now, what I'm hearing and reading is most of this inflation is from what we spent last year, or which was deemed. So as you see Congress pushing through all of these big spending bills, which it seems like every one of them is over $1 trillion. I mean, my gosh, I remember when that was a big number.
Right, well, I feel like it still is.
So a lot of those funds won't even hit the system till next year, or even the year after. So if we're sitting at 6.4% now, I've seen some reports by the end of December saying 8 to 10%. And we won't see that till January, as far as the reports go.
Wow.
So that's a lot.
That's significant.
Yeah.
It is.
So what if I still have my investment strategy from the longest bull run, or one of the longest, probably the longest bull run in the history of the stock market? What if I say, okay, I'm going to do the same things that I've been doing over this 13-year period, and that should do fine into an inflationary market? We can bring in that definition of insanity real quick from Einstein. I don't think we can keep doing what we've been doing and expect the same results, because the market is changing.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I've seen, energy is getting really expensive. Have you filled up your car lately, right?
Yes.
Electric bills.
It was expensive.
We're hearing that electricity for the winter, the heating, all of these things, okay? So one strategy could be, if, I'm working with companies that use a lot of energy, I'm guessing their profitability is going to be lower because they're spending more for energy. I know some parts of the stock market, like technology, they don't use much energy at all. Okay, so that could be one thing, to think about. Other things would be, what do people have to have in inflationary? Well, you got to eat, you got to drive, there's certain things you have to do.
Yep.
So, value stocks sometimes in an economy that's inflationary tend to do better, but also things that everybody has to use. I know there's a big thing about cryptocurrency these days and all that. But do you know it takes a lot of energy to mine for cryptocurrency?
I had no idea. Never thought about it.
I've just noticed that start pulling back. But they have rooms of computers that they have to use to do this cryptocurrency mining. And these computers use a lot of energy. And that's why Elon Musk got kind of burned out about it a few months back, and he said, hey, these crypto places are using too much energy,
Uh-huh.
which isn't good.
That's not good.
Yeah.
Before we head out, actually, I do want to talk about how this plays into, how much money we have in the bank. One of the things we talked about on our last episode was that notion, of course, of the emergency fund.
Mm-hmm.
We got to keep enough money in the bank for an emergency. So, what's too much?
We should have just about 6 months' expenses. You know, if not, if I have too much in there and inflation's 10, then it's worth 9. Say I have 100,000 in checking and I shouldn't have that much, and I'm 10% inflationary. Now it's purchasing power is 90. I
Got
just
it.
lost 10,000 by not having a return. I did read something that said since 1913, the U.S. dollar has lost 90% of its value.
That's an astounding number.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we keep printing them out, and the
Yeah.
more we print out, the lower that thing's going to be worth.
Wow, well,
Or
this
the
has
less.
been lots of good information. Some good news, right? We got
Yeah,
some tax
hey.
brackets moving, some
Yeah.
tough things to navigate like inflation,
Sure.
but all part of the big picture, and
Right.
that's where having somebody on your side can really help. Thank you for your
Absolutely.
expertise.
All right.
Again, this is Phil Bloyd. You're watching Lowcountry Money Talk. We'll see you next time.